Hello, everyone. John Adolphi here with the Lost World Museum, where we ask the provocative and important question, where do we come from? Apes, aliens, or Adam? And in this discussion as to our origins, Noah's Ark is going to come up in conversation. It has to. The critics say that there was no such thing as a worldwide flood, that Noah's Ark is nothing more than a fairy tale. And it's one of many that we see in the different cultures. And so is it true? Was there a Noah's Ark? Well, I want to talk to you a little bit today about what does Noah's Ark look like? What do we know? What can we gather from eyewitnesses, the biblical account? And we're going to collectively put them all together, and I'm going to take a tour virtually, audibly here, through Noah's Ark. And when we get done, I believe you're going to be able to envision the Ark in a maybe a different way than you have in the past. So Noah's Ark, or the word ark, means box. It doesn't mean a boat. You know, it's not those funny little animals sticking their head out of the ports or the windows of an ark. No, this is serious stuff now. God had to transport people, a little bit of food, and a lot of animals for an entire year. And so he had to have something that was seaworthy, and it could do the job. Now, the size of it is given in cubits in the Bible. 1 cubit equals 18 inches. That's the Hebrew cubit, but there are other cubit measurements out there, differing in length, anywhere between 16 inches all the way up to 25 inches or so. So the cubit, in this case, we're going to use 18 inches, but we'll talk about that in just a second. 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits tall. Now hold those numbers for a second. We're going to translate those into feet in just a second, a little bit further on in our discussion. The Bible also says that it was made of gopher wood. Now there's two theories on that. Number one, some believe that the wood that they're referring to as gopher wood was really cypress wood, a really good wood to use for this type of shipbuilding. There is one other theory, and that is gopher wood is gopherized wood. Now, the Bible says that the ark was covered inside and outside with pitch, which is an agent like sap, and it may have been sap that went on the inside and out to waterproof the ark. The idea is that gopherized wood was heat-injected pitch, a technology that you wouldn't necessarily think that the antediluvians had, but I believe if you really think it through, people living 800 years and acquiring scientific knowledge with brains that far surpass us today, their technologies may have included that. So it's just a theory, but gopherized is not gopher wood, but it's wood that's undergone a process of heat injection pitch that then made the wood waterproof. Now, it also says that there was a window all the way the length of it, 1 cubit high. And let's come back to that in just a second. Also says there was a door on the side and there were 3 decks. That's about all that it says about the construction of the ark. Now, based on the collection of eyewitnesses, locals that live at the base of the mountain who have seen it, and the Russians that many claim were there in 1916 to measure it, photograph it, only to see their information destroyed during the Bolshevik Revolution of 1917. Here's what they said. First off, when we talked about the size of the ark being 300 by 50 by 30 cubits, that it works out with the 18-inch cubit to be 450 feet long by 75 feet wide and 45 feet tall. Now, if we employ the royal cubit, which it may have been, then the ark would be 600 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 60 feet tall. It's a little bit more room there. Now, George Hagopian, who was interviewed in the early 1970s, claimed that when he was 8 years old and 10 years old, actually went and stood on top of Noah's Ark when he was 8, and then was there up close when he was 10 years old, with his uncle who brought him there and gave the testimony to an Alfred Lee. When Alfred Lee interviewed him over the course of 18 months, okay, certain details came out as Alfred, who is a trained archaeological illustrator, drew the memories, like a crime scene sketch artist, drew the memories of George Hagopian. And here's what he found out. Here's what he said to him. He said there was a keel going up, down, underneath, and then back up on the aft part of the ship. Now, just for those of you who don't know, a keel is a structural support for the hull and the entire ship. All right. He also said, much to Lee's surprise, Hagopian said that the corners of the ark were rounded, which suggests a much more sophisticated design. Rounded corners as opposed to square. I thought that was very interesting. Now, when the Russians were there in 1916, what little information we were able to extract from either relatives or the principals that were there, because most of them were killed, only a few were able to make it to the United States shortly after the Revolution, 1917. They said the side door opening was off. It was laying on the ground. They said that the opening was around 20 to 25 feet square. So say 20 by 20 feet. They went inside. They said the top deck was where Noah's family lived, and there was a ceramic box stove that they used to cook on, and they said the furniture was very large, and the locals that had been living at the foot of the mountain, that had been inside, they said the same thing too. Interesting that the Bible in Genesis 6, just before it goes into the whole scenario of the flood and the building of the ark, said there were giants on the earth in those days. And that same word, Nephilim, used there is also there to describe the people of Canaan, that when the spies went in with Caleb and Joshua leading that contingent, they said they were grasshoppers in our eyes. You know, we looked like grasshoppers in their eyes. And believe me, we're not talking about 100-foot giants. I'm 6'2", and I had someone at church that's 6'7", and just 5 inches difference makes me feel small. And I have to look up to this fella. These people were probably, according to Goliath's height, according to King Og's bed size, we're looking at 10, 12-foot people. Now, what's going to be interesting is when we go on board the ark and we do find built-in furniture, and it's built for giants, giant tables, chairs, and beds. It's going to be interesting. All right, so they also said, locals and the Russians, that there were small cages, maybe on the middle level, small cages with iron bars for like birds or small animals. But on the lower level, there were huge cages with beams, huge beams for creatures bigger, they said, than anything that we have at this time currently. That's interesting. Now, light and air. How did the ark get fresh light and air without getting water inside the ark? Great question. Remember how we talked about how there was a window at the top that went up and down the ark? That window was nothing more than a small, thin, wide roof raised up, and then there were, like, if you were to imagine 2x4s every few feet, and the light and air came inside the top of the ark. So the top of the roof was opened up some in the middle. And this window let light and air in. But what good is it if it's only for the first floor? Well, the ark, from what everyone is, collectively saying, is like a mall. All 3 floors had an opening running all the way to the bottom of the ark. Okay, so basically each floor went from the side of the ark in and then stopped. And this whole hallway, if you want to call it, was open from the top of the ark all the way down to the base of the ark. And so the air and light could strike all three of the levels in the ark. Ingenious. So where's the ark located? The Bible says the mountains of Ararat. Today, most people point to Mount Ararat, about 15,000 feet up in a valley on top of the mountain on the northeast side, right above the El Hora Gorge. Look it up on Google Earth and you'll be able to see it. The search continues. Yes, people are going either most of the time clandestinely or are getting permission to go up there and are looking for it. And it's just a matter of time before that ice melts just enough for that glacier to expose the ark again, whether it be on Google Earth or someone goes up there and starts taking photographs and video. Maybe we'll have a satellite and they'll release the photos. Until then, there you have it. If you'd like a free report on the top three reasons why Noah's Ark must still exist, go to Museum Alerts, MUSEUMALERTS.com for that free report. I'm John Adolphi with the Lost World Museum, asking the provocative question as we close here. Apes, aliens, or Adam? Which is it? Where did we come from?